Back in episode 66, we had an amazing social media influencer named Wallstreet Trapper. All right, he is known for speaking to the Black and brown community about the stock market. Now, back when he was on our episode, he was talking about the beginning of his network, Wall Street Looks Like Us Now network. And it was just in the beginning stages. Now he has pretty much over 2 million views on his YouTube channel for that network. He came out with a tour based off what is the content from that particular network. And he recently did an interview with Mike about that journey that got him into starting the network, where he was on, if y'all remember it on our podcast episode, where we were like, yo, you're on Breakfast Club, you're on Ellen, you're on this platform, you're on Tom Bilyeu, you're everywhere. Well, this is what he had to say about that.
Energy. I was putting a lot of energy into just being on everybody's platform,
right,
and just spreading it. Yeah. And then I ain't realized that there was a business component to it. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't building out nothing for me.
Right.
So if Instagram would have shut down one day, I ain't have nothing.
Yeah. To have a home.
I ain't have a home.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, but I saw everybody else building it. Mm-hmm. Well, a few people, because everybody don't get it.
Right.
And so I was like, okay, I understand the people who rock with me.
Yeah.
And I understand who my voice for. And so I was like, I never want to give nobody the power to cut my voice off.
Right.
And talk to my people.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
I wanted us to go in the angle of kind of like the pros and the cons of having our own platform, pretty much seeing how he has leveraged other platforms, but he didn't have the business side right. So there wasn't really true leverage besides more followers. And we already know from a certain point that more followers don't necessarily equal up to dollars. Doesn't necessarily equal up to ownership. I wanted to speak about more of, like how we always do, the business side of content, but now from owning the platform, having a business model to leverage when we are on these different platforms. So Moose, just from like seeing that and hearing that clip, what are some of your first thoughts?
So initially, I have to highlight the importance of when you enter a new space, just bare minimum, really spend some time to investigate and figure out what is the real business opportunity here. And so when you talk about social media, you know that, yes, you're leveraging your content and your social or personal brand to have something that is made available to the people for them to transact with you. Now, I hate to say transact where it's like, wait, so it's a transactional relationship? No. I mean that if you want to help people, there's always a percentage of people from those who are exposed to your brand that want to go a step further with you. So in the case of Trap, I'm sure there were some who were just happy with the general knowledge that he shared on maybe the Breakfast Club or some of these other platforms. But there were a group of people who were saying, okay, I want my handheld. Can you review my portfolio and tell me what picks I should include and what I should take out and how I should move this so that I could really make this a full-time thing? And so when you don't give those people the opportunity to enter your ecosystem, I think those are some of the shortages. So just to keep it plain and simple, at least on this first go round, I have to put emphasis on that. Understand the true business opportunity of how money is made within that space. And then second, know that typically, at least on the online space, you want to have something available. So if you notice, even certain big name influencers or speakers, especially those who have just launched a book, they do that podcast tour or they do that podcast run where they're going out and the book is right next to them. I'm like, oh yeah, I just put out this, so tell us about this new book. And it's a great way, right, to bring traffic. So there's something that you want the people to see and not just goodwill. Goodwill is great. And I think Trap still has a lot to gain from doing it just on goodwill. But when you talk business, there's got to be a plan.
So I actually got a question for you that you set it up like that. So for you personally, like when you are working with certain brands, when you're working even from maybe just building out the content side, are you thinking more of, okay, what is the business model of this more than before? Or is it still like, I'm still trying to get my footing as far as exposure? Because I do believe when, with trap, I think there's different stages that we all go through. I think the brand awareness, the exposure stage, regardless if you have anything or not, is always going to be first, right? So we're just getting our feet wet. We're trying to see what to do. We're getting on these social media platforms. We're recreating different channels. We're trying to collaborate with other people, get on people's platforms and see what it is. But I think if we were given the information sooner, we could possibly do it a little bit different, where brand awareness and the business model works hands in hand, rather than, okay, I need to have a brand. Let's go. Let me just get out there and I'll figure it out. So for you, have you always thought about the business model and maybe that's why it stopped you from certain things? Or is it now like intentional, like, yo, exposure is great. Working with you is great. Yeah. It's amazing. But like, let's figure out this business model.
Oh yeah, no, I definitely have not always taught this way. I'm talking from experience of someone who's made some mistakes. I'm talking from some mistakes made that we often have this, and I think it's something that you said at one point too, that we're happy just to be given the opportunity. Mm-hmm. And so you celebrate that as the business. Like, yo, look how much money I'm making. I've been given an opportunity. Right. And then you grow through it and you find out what is really happening from a business standpoint. And you recognize that while you're grateful for the opportunity to sit on a platform or be exposed to a unique opportunity, you're not getting your fair share from what you're contributing. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's where it helps to do exactly what you said, which is so critical that you broke it down that way. Get the knowledge and then build around the exposure and the awareness, because at least you're walking into it with some level of understanding, how is money made in this space? Mm-hmm. And I think that's the unique thing. So you don't get taken advantage of and you don't realize I think and I don't want to put words in Trap's mouth, but I think what ends up happening is you do things with good intentions when you do it that way, and you realize that other people may have not necessarily had similar intentions. They were like, oh, this is an opportunity to make some money off of somebody who's giving away some really good free information. So come on in. And so I get it. Again, you have the numbers, you have the power, so you make it work that way, but not everyone has such pure-hearted intentions to match that approach. So yeah, I haven't started that way, but definitely now I have that understanding of, okay, I know that there's unique and different ways in which money is made in certain industries, and it helps to know, because when you move accordingly, people on the receiving end, once they know that they typically, things work themselves out a lot better that way.
I definitely never led with money, or like, I'm not super business savvy per se, right? But I think in the past couple of years, I've really put emphasis on realizing that content is a business in itself. And I think it was hard to understand before because there wasn't so many examples like there are now. So like if we look at Trap, just from outside looking in, right? You break down what he has created from now that he has his own studio, right? From the studio standpoint, he's housing all his content, but as well as he could possibly rent out that space for other events and other content creators. So that's kind of a different business model right there. If you look at it, he has the Patreon, right? You look at it, he has courses. He has merch. He has digital products like ebooks. He has the community. Of course, like I said earlier, he has over 2 million views from YouTube alone, that now we're talking about AdSense. I'm not really even sure how his podcast is set up, but he probably has some ads turned on over there, which is then some type of money as well. He has full control of his content. He has full control of the stories and the narrative that he's putting out. Not to say that, or I don't even know, the platforms that he was on before, they may have edited certain things out that on his actual, podcast, on his actual network, he could say his full story, right? On this tour, he's saying his full story, taking what was happening from the network to now turning it into a tour and hitting different cities and different, and these are not small venues. These are like Live Nation event, like venues. Like, these are heavy duty. I look at kind of the pros and cons of having a platform, because he did that, even though there wasn't necessarily a business model in the beginning. The exposure that he had built up a community, a loyal community, that when he finally did have certain things in place, they followed along with it, right? That's why I don't necessarily see anything wrong with, if you lead with exposure first, if you lead with getting the brand awareness first, it's not necessarily all the way bad. Now, there is a part that is a little bit bad, where there are some that are just ready to go. Meaning they're like, okay, I like you. Where am I going next? I have my credit card. Hello. Your information's great. Your entertainment's great. Your motivation's great. Cool.
Yeah.
I want more. Let me get more. And so he may have lost, and this is for anybody too, we may have lost certain people because there wasn't a next step, right? And so they went to another person for a next step.
Yep.
But now that he has this all in place, now he has full control of where his community goes. Because before, his community was going to all these different platforms. They were also being exposed to all these different platforms, and they may have stayed because another influencer, maybe after, provided a solution that Trap didn't necessarily do. Or for any of us, you think of, okay, I'm getting on these different podcasts, I'm getting on these different stages, I'm doing different lives, getting on these different channels. Here is where, am I really leading them to something? And I know me personally has been multiple times where I didn't, right? I was like so focused on the giving away the content, like they could just come to the Instagram and they could just stay there. And then what? You know, what next? So here is where, okay, let's look at this. If we're getting it from social media, how am I at least getting them off social media? Okay, boom. Let me at least bare minimum now start a newsletter. I even started a newsletter late in the game, right? Content Corner newsletter. Shout out to those people who are on that, right? But I started a newsletter late in the game, but I realized for example, with Threads, here's another platform that I'm just gaining more followers. And where am I taking them to? Yes, do I have a community? Absolutely. Do I have different programs? Absolutely. But with new platforms, you're going to be exposed. People are going to be exposed of you from a new level. So what is that new free thing besides your content? And that's going to be, for me or for you, a newsletter, right? It could be the podcast. It could be other things, a YouTube series, whatever it is. But for me, I wanted to own, what are we doing to own the audience? So that's the newsletter. Nicky and Moose has a newsletter. Shout out to over like 1,000 people that's on our newsletter. That's step one. Two, what is next? What are we taking them? You think about it like a value ladder, right? Is it to the point where, you know what, we've had enough downloads, we've had enough views, the first stream is going to be AdSense. The first stream is going to be social media giving us a few coins here and there. Cool. Next thing, what about affiliates, right? Brands that you're already utilizing. Cool. Courses, digital products, merch, right? When it comes to Trap, he could license out his content, right? He owns the network. He owns the content. He can license it out later down the road. There may be bigger networks that are like, yo, I like what you have. Creating your own platform, even from a simple standpoint of like your own platform for your community, you just have more control of what happens. Like the music industry, right? They control when your album comes out. Us as let's say educators, we control when our program comes out, which is our quote unquote album, right? We control when another class comes out. We control when another digital product comes out. We control when merch comes out, right? Because we have that. Now, if we were on a network, if we were on, a bigger situation, they may control for us when these podcast episodes come out, when the video side comes out, when these different clips come out. But we have a little bit more control. So you got to look at, pros and cons of everything. But I do believe we have to put more respect and more of a business sense to the content rather than just being like, well, it's free and everybody gets it and da-da-da. And it's like, yeah, but no.
It's a part of a bigger process for sure, because I think when those things are not in place, you have to start from zero every time. And we've learned through this podcast, and shout out to, Damian when he got on the podcast and he said, you run ads not to get discovered by new people all the time. You run ads to get in contact with the people who are following you that are not even getting your stuff. Like they're just not seeing your post. And so if I have an alternative method to communicate with people who have came across my information, came across my profile, they liked me and my brand, and they hit that blue button that says follow, but they're not seeing my information for whatever reason, having access to connect to them through an alternative method gives me yet another shot to help build the success of my business or to help generate some momentum within my business. So that's a critical piece that, I think just from a flat out marketing standpoint, not every person who's creating content or who's launching their personal brand really understands. And I'm, again, speaking from experience, I know I didn't in the beginning, where I realized, oh, this is a numbers game. I understand numbers in a business standpoint from a black and white profit and loss, but now I understand how it translates into marketing. And so I wanted to say this for everyone listening or watching, try to always translate new information into languages that you already understand. And so if you're a numbers person learning something new, try to find, how do numbers work in this new thing that I'm trying to learn? Because it's already a part of your natural wiring. You're going to be able to easily understand that, right? So I think that was one of the things that made it click for me. Oh, it's a numbers thing. So if I get exposed to 1,000 people, my conversion rate is usually 10%. Okay, I can expect. So if I want to reach 1,000 people, I just have to find a way to get in front of 10,000 people. Okay, got it. I don't have to think about, oh, this is the type of content. Well, yeah, it is going to be content, but bare bones, it's a numbers game. So I think that was one of the ways too, Nix, that made it easy to understand and then accept that as part of the evolution in the business.
I like that. So everybody, think about just, are you ready to have your own platform? Are you ready to start thinking about content in a whole new way, especially from a business side and not just from a creator side? This is me telling you that, because I am definitely that creator side. But now putting a little bit more respect to, the business side, and even me in the process of doing that with Deeper Than the Brand, still is an ongoing process. I think anything when it comes to business, you don't always get it all the way right, especially when you go with the, just create it and fix it on the way. I hate that. I wish I never listened to that situation. Whoever was the first person who said that just makes life harder, and it's not even necessary. But hey, we live and we learn. Live and we learn.